keep in mind that wellness practices are part of your productivity. Let's not forget wellness as a cornerstone of productivity. If you're running on empty, meeting business goals will feel impossible. So schedule breaks. Block off time in your calendar for meals, walks, or simply resting. I spent the first number of years in private practice not eating lunch, and it's going to burn you out at some time. You don't get a break for your brain, your body doesn't get the nourishment it needs, and it finally caught up with me. So try to avoid that. Set boundaries. Limit your work hours to avoid burnout. Turn off notifications during your downtime, or better yet, put your phone in another room. Celebrate wins with your personal wellness practices. Acknowledge accomplishments in this area, no matter how small. This will keep you motivated and remind you of the progress you're making.
Welcome to the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Collab Oasis Clinical Consultation Groups. Hi, I'm Jeanene Wolf, and I'm your colleague down the hall. I have a passion for helping fellow therapists get the clinical and collegial support we all need to do this work. And wow, it just keeps getting harder every day. I'm the founder and facilitator of the Collab Oasis Clinical Consultation Groups. I have been a social worker for almost 30 years, and I own a successful solo online private practice. More of us than ever are practicing in solo or online practices, and we all need colleagues to process cases with, commiserate with on those really hard days, and also to celebrate our successes with. In this podcast, I'll bring you insights about trends and changes in our field and sit down with amazing therapists who are doing amazing work. We'll discuss fictionalized cases, ways to practice sustainably, and of course, there will be plenty of laughing. I love laughing with friends. I'm so glad to have you as one of my colleagues down the hall.
Hello, everyone. You're listening to another episode of the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. I'm your host, Jeanene Wolf, and today I'm going to talk about Neurospicy productivity tips. This is for all you therapists out there who are neurodivergent like myself. Let's start by acknowledging something important. Being a neurodivergent therapist comes with unique challenges and strengths. Whether you're navigating ADHD, autism, dyslexia, or other forms of neurodivergence, the way your brain works is not a barrier. It's a unique way of processing the world and your work. But let's be honest, running a private practice can feel overwhelming, even for neurotypical folks. Add the complexity of neurodivergence, and things like scheduling, admin tasks, and staying focused can become hurdles. Today, I want to offer actionable tips to help you align your goals with systems that actually work for you. We'll focus on leveraging your strengths, minimizing overwhelm, and building sustainable habits. First, I encourage you to embrace your strengths. One of the first steps to meeting your business and productivity goals is recognizing your natural strengths as a neurodivergent individual. Now, I understand some people don't see neurodivergence as a strength, but bear with me and maybe you will change your mind after you listen to some of these tips that I'm sharing. So look at the big picture. Many neurodivergent therapists excel at seeing the big picture and coming up with creative solutions. This is invaluable for setting long-term goals and dreaming big for your practice. Lean into your empathy and intuition. Neurodivergent therapists often bring heightened empathy and deep connections with their clients, which is a major strength in building a successful private practice. So take some time to reflect on your strengths. Write them down or talk about them with a trusted colleague. This list will be a great reminder for when you feel stuck or overwhelmed. Next, let's look at goal setting for neurodivergent brains. Traditional goal-setting methods like SMART goals may not always work if your brain struggles with rigid structures. Instead, try to be flexible with goal setting that fits how you think and process information. There are several ways to do this. The first one is to chunk down your goals. Break large goals into smaller, actionable steps. For example, instead of improved marketing, focus on specific tasks like write one blog post or schedule 2 social media posts this week. I also like to use a parking lot for tasks and goals. This is the main list of all the things you need to do or plan. Use this list to set weekly priorities. Choose just 1 to 3 tasks to focus on each week to avoid overwhelm. It might be helpful to make the first one something easy so you can get the win before moving on to a more difficult task. And of course, check boxes. For many neurodivergent folks, there is nothing more affirming or satisfying than checking a box. Heck, sometimes I get something done and add it to my list just so I can give myself credit by checking the box. And for those of you who use AI, I asked it to create a weekly schedule using time blocks. I indicated the chunks of time that were available for non-client facing tasks, all the things I need to do weekly, and it whipped out a great schedule. And if it doesn't give you what you want the first time, continue asking questions and refining what you want, and AI can get this all set up for you. And for those of you who use AI, I asked it to create a weekly schedule using time blocks. I indicated the chunks of time that were available for non-client facing tasks, all the things I need to do weekly, and it whipped out a great schedule. I've also found it helpful to write down where I end at each block of time and where to start for the next time that I'm doing this task, so I can sit down and immediately know where I need to put my focus. Next, use visual tools. Mind maps, sticky notes, or Kanban boards can help you visually organize your thoughts and tasks. I have found it especially helpful to use an awesome planner. I keep it open on my desk, so it is right in front of me between my computer and keyboard. It has a monthly dashboard where I can see the whole month while also having smaller pages that flip for each week. And there is lots of space to jot down notes, things I don't want to forget. And I do add in non-client appointments to keep everything right at my fingertips. Mine looks like a jumbled mess at times, but I use different colored ink for each task, and my brain loves this. The planner I use is by Laurel Denise, and I use the weekly horizontal planner. Moving on, let's look at building external structures. Neurodivergent therapists often thrive with external support systems that take the mental load off. Use digital tools. Apps like Notion, Trello, or Asana can help you track things visually and set reminders. Personally, I have found ClickUp to be the most neurodivergent friendly tool for task management. It's also a great place to organize information. Your elevator speech for your private practice, testimonials, if you do a non-client business, you can put all sorts of stuff in there. And automate repeated tasks. Automate client scheduling, billing, and reminders with systems like a great EHR or Google Calendar. You can also use ClickUp for this and have it send you reminder emails. Outsource when possible. Consider hiring a virtual assistant for tasks like billing, social media management, and email organization. When you first open a private practice, you have more time than client. Over time, that shifts, and your admin time is more scarce. So look at the tasks that take the most time or that you dislike doing and consider outsourcing those. You might also want to look at how you are managing your time and energy. Time management can feel especially tricky for neurodivergent therapists. Time blindness, fluctuating energy levels, and difficulty transitioning between tasks are common challenges. Here are some things that might help. Number 1, honor your energy patterns. Notice when you feel most focused or productive during the day and schedule important tasks during that time. You might even want to shift your therapy schedule so you find the best balance of seeing your clients at your best while also having more productivity. Timers and alarms. Use alarms or Pomodoro timers to keep track of time and transition between tasks. There are also some apps or programs that help you record the time you are spending with a specific task. ClickUp can do this as well. Schedule buffer time. Build extra time into your schedule for transitions, unexpected delays, or mental breaks. Except that some days your brain will not cooperate no matter what you do. For this, you can check your task list to see if anything jumps out as something your brain likes that day. I also find it helpful to create deadlines for tasks to create a sense of urgency as the week progresses. Next, let's look at how organizing your environment can be helpful. Many neurodivergent therapists I know are piles people. I certainly am one of those. I have a number of piles on my desk, but they are sorted in a variety of ways, so I generally know where something is that I need for my weekly task or ongoing projects. For some people, a cluttered environment can lead to sensory overload or difficulty focusing. So spend some time figuring out what works for you and create a workspace that works best for you. Other than piles, you can create zones dedicated to specific spaces for tasks like paperwork, creative work, or therapy sessions. If you need to minimize visual clutter, get some pretty bins or folders or use drawers to keep your space tidy. Clear bins can be helpful if you need to see items to remember them. As an ADHD woman, I struggle with object permanence. If it's not in front of me, I don't see it. Much like what we see in younger children, much like we see in babies. Try to declutter regularly. Spend 10 to 15 minutes each week tidying up instead of tackling it all at once. For example, if you find yourself losing track of client paperwork, dedicate a specific tray or folder for to-do items and review it weekly. And be sure to create a way to combat overwhelm. Overwhelm can derail even the best plans. Learn to recognize when you're heading into overwhelm and have strategies in place to address it. Start small or easy. When you're feeling paralyzed, pick one small, manageable task to get started. Brain dumps. Write down everything swirling in your mind. Once it's on paper, prioritize what needs to be done now versus what can wait. That is the purpose of your parking lot, the things that can wait. And don't forget to seek support. Don't hesitate to reach out to a colleague or your peer consultation group for help. And if you haven't discovered the magic of body doubling to get productive, you should look into it. There's a website called FocusMate where you can get paired with someone who also needs a body double. Keep in mind that wellness practices are part of your productivity. Let's not forget wellness as a cornerstone of productivity. If you're running on empty, meeting business goals will feel impossible. So schedule breaks. Block off time in your calendar for meals, walks, or simply resting. I spent the first number of years in private practice not eating lunch, and it's going to burn you out at some time. You don't get a break for your brain. Your body doesn't get the nourishment it needs. And it finally caught up with me. So try to avoid that. Set boundaries. Limit your work hours to avoid burnout. Turn off notifications during your downtime. Or better yet, put your phone in another room. Celebrate wins with your personal wellness practices. Acknowledge accomplishments in this area, no matter how small. This will keep you motivated and remind you of the progress you're making. Remember, the ND brain loves affirmation. Now I encourage you to experiment and adjust. Not every system or strategy will work for you, and that's okay. The key is to keep experimenting until you find what feels natural and sustainable. And for many neurodivergent people, something works great until it doesn't. I find this especially true as an ADHDer. Offer yourself some kindness and flexibility when this occurs. You just need to find a new system, and you already have the skills for doing that. So instead of feeling shame that it's no longer working, put that energy into finding the next best thing. You might also want to consider reviewing regularly. Set aside time monthly or quarterly to review what's working and what isn't. Adjust as needed. Get feedback. Ask trusted colleagues for their input if you're feeling stuck. They might have strategies or insights you haven't considered. Being a neurodivergent therapist can be a gift, even if it comes with challenges. By focusing on your strengths, building supportive systems, and practicing self-compassion, you can meet your business and productivity goals in a way that feels authentic to you. Your practice doesn't have to look like anyone else's. That's the benefits of having your own private practice. What matters is creating the system that supports your success. You've got this. I am rooting for you. For all you therapists out there, please remember our work is hard, but it doesn't have to be lonely.
Thank you so much for listening to the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to colleaguedownthehall.com, where you'll be able to learn more about getting the clinical support you need and resources to help you work in a supported, sustainable way. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your therapy friends and colleagues. Subscribe to the podcast, and if you love this episode, please leave a review.